Hey everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Flame. And on today's episode, this is all about change management. Okay, yes. Hello once again, Ed. How are you?
I am awesome, Mr. Toombs.
Yes.
And yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Very good on this a very bright sunny day. Obviously, it's not because this is England, so we don't get sun. But yes, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us back again. Today we are talking about changing the recipe for success. So that is all about how to deal with those changes and the challenges within change management. So, what is change management? I think let's start there, shall we, Ed?
Yes. So what is change management? So, I mean, there's all kinds of, nomenclature we can throw in here, but the gist of change management is that you have a change, a feature, a bug, something that you have within your system that you want to move from one environment to another. So that could be from a dev environment to a staging to a production. And you need to have a consistent way of managing that change to hopefully reduce the impact to your users as much as possible. That's kind of my high level.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's mitigating that risk. It's managing the communication, whether it's adding or changing anything to anything.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Make it as smooth as possible. And then, hopefully you don't have any nightmare stories.
Yeah, well, talking about nightmare stories, I'm pretty sure we've all got some. But since this is very specific, I think there's one that I would definitely like to bring up. If we cast their mind back to, what was it? Probably 2 years ago.
2022.
Yeah, so you and I would have been at Team 22.
Yep.
It was keynote, so this would have been the Tuesday. We sit down and, just as we sit down,
everyone's phones start going off in the team keynote at Atlassian's conference.
So yeah, what happened? The entire Atlassian Cloud had a change implemented. What they considered was a maintenance script, wasn't it?
It was a maintenance script update.
Yeah. So off goes this maintenance script, and down goes the entire Atlassian Cloud.
Yes.
So if you talk about horror stories, I mean, first of all, during your keynote, it's probably not the best one. But I mean, this is why even to a level of normal changes, this is why you still have peer reviews. This is still why you have to have cabs and other things like involved. But I mean, ultimately, what you thought was routine ends up very much becoming a nightmare.
Yeah. And I mean, that one was kind of a ironic horror story just because of involving Atlassian, but even more recently. So, we've had the whole CrowdStrike thing that literally brought the entire, aviation industry down almost. And again, it was just supposed to be a maintenance update kind of thing. And so,
again, there was an issue with the kernel, wasn't it, for that one? Again, something changed, an issue with the kernel, and that down goes what?
It was like a config file or something, not major, but it's still, caused an issue. And again, what happens in those cases is that all of a sudden, it gets a ton of attention, and then everyone goes into a reactive mode of, oh man, we need to check our change management processes. So that doesn't happen to us, instead of being proactive and keeping those at the front of, a continuous improvement process, making sure we don't hit that nightmare story,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with that, that's a very nice little segue. Something that I think is always, I guess, people's preconception of change, which is, I don't want to take this to cab. Cab's only going to say no.
They're going to say no. It's going to take 2 weeks. They're going to just sit there. They're going to ask all these questions that we already answered.
Yeah.
Why do we do this?
Exactly. I mean, the whole point of a change advisory board is exactly what it is. It's there to provide assurances to the business that the level of expectation is being met within the process. That is their entire job. They're not being purposeful in terms of their activity. They are just simply doing their job. And I know that a lot of people do not like cab members, but unfortunately that's what it is, what it is.
It's part of the process, and it's a necessary part of the process because it's another set of eyes that need to look at the change. The people that are presenting the changes at these cab meetings are, very blinders. They're very specific. They know what they're doing. They know what the change is involving. But having that other set of eyes from other system areas to be able to go over that change and make sure that, the maintenance window that's going to occur is long enough, make sure that the backup procedures are adequate, who all it's going to impact. Do we miss anyone that's going to be affected, kind of thing? So it's definitely a necessary evil.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, for me, the people that should be involved in a cab, you usually have your change manager, the person that's going to oversee that board. But you usually have a representative of all the major areas, including what you should have is a peer review. So if I submit one, you should be my peer reviewer. And those kind of that level. Now, just from an Atlassian side, keeping with theme here, we have Compass. Now, how would you use Compass to kind of show off or help with some of that change approval process?
Yeah, so the cool thing about Compass is that you can pull in all of your components, and your components can be anything that you're working on. It can be a feature request, a bug fix, anything. You can pull all that in, and you can see what the release schedule has been. You can look at the development team that's been working on these and how they're trending as far as working together as a team. It kind of brings that central view and kind of insights that we haven't had before into the whole dev process. So now your change management is kind of helping pull in some of your DevOps pieces, and you're kind of merging those in. And I think for the benefit of everyone, because now you have a better view from your DevOps perspective that goes into your change management. So, even though you may have like some automated CI/CD processes, you still need to go through the change management process before those get implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the reason I think actually you could have done this with native assets, you could do it with any CMDB, but it's the relationship mapping. How do I know truly, if I'm making a change to, let's say, the authentication microservice within my product, what other things is that going to entail? If I'm making, let's say, a database change for that service, are there any other services that use the same database? Is that service then obviously, it would in this particular case, but is it going to stop all authentication to my product? Therefore, are my users impacted? And because you get that visualization with Compass of the up and downstream attached services, applications, whatever it might be, you can create a very, very good picture for risk. So one of the big things, which obviously I know, so again, if you're not familiar, I imagine you probably will be, but you have your normal changes, which are pre-approved, understood risk to every element. You've got your standard changes, which are things that you're going to run through your board. And then you've obviously got your emergency changes, which you do retrospectively. But inside all three of those, you still got an element of risk. You'll have a low standard change, a low risk standard change, and a high risk. So what would be the things that you typically measure in terms of like risk?
Yeah. So, what's the impact? So is my change just changing the color of a button from blue to red? Obviously very low risk, right? So I can evaluate that. And does that need to go by a change advisory board because it's just such a minimal, maybe even a repeatable change that is applied on a weekly basis? So do we run that through the cab board? Or what's the amount of users or resources that are going to be impacted, kind of thing. So it's like I'm looking at who's going to be impacted, and then what other system areas could be touched, kind of thing. If it's just a website, a page on a website, I'm a little less anxious about that risk versus, hey, we're updating foreign keys on a database table that could have a massive impact.
Or maybe enter the wrong IDs onto a maintenance script that takes down your Atlassian Cloud.
Exactly. So you know what, and to your point, Dan, that you would think that would be such a minimal risk thing, but it's like, wow, now you got to reevaluate your change management process for those type of changes. Now it's like, we got burned, so now we got to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So those type of changes may need to go through the CAB board again now and be.
Yeah, I mean, we've all done it. We literally, I think we were speaking last night about some of the things that I've probably done, which I shouldn't have done. But it's human. We're all human at the end of the day. That we're gonna make mistakes. We're not perfect, but it's just, again, it's about managing that risk, understanding the risk, and a big part of that is expected downtime as well.
Yeah.
Now, if an incident does occur, obviously your expected downtime is not going to be what it actually is. That's just understandable. So the thing that I think is really key is, especially when you then have something like a major incident as that, which is your post work.
Yeah.
So you've made your change. It's gone swimmingly, or so you think. But you eventually come out to the other side and you've got a document. Now, this document is going to help you in the future prove that you can go from a standard to a normal, or it's going to help you change your practices and processes for the future so that you don't have a high risk standard, you have a lower risk standard change.
Exactly.
So for your post change reviews, what kind of things would you want to see in that?
So on the post change reviews, I'm definitely going to want to see, the process that we use. I want to see that our smoke test and our checkout list was executed from post deployment to make sure that those items were addressed. Because if we got all that covered and then something still went wrong, that's something that occurred that we didn't see coming. And so now we have the ability to go back. Okay, we checked everything off. We did everything right. This still occurred. What was the root cause of that now? And let's add that to our new checklist.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, again, we're human. We don't see things, or the way I see important checklist items, you might see different. You might actually say, we need to include these 3 additional steps, which I just, I go, nah, I'm a bit more blasé. I'm easy. It's fine if they go wrong. But obviously, it's important to include those in a post change, or even, in your change review, and therefore obviously in your post change. I think what often happens, though, is as we move from, let's say, a normal post-change review where everything has gone swimmingly into the world where things don't, is that this can be an element of company culture, but you can definitely see more of a blame game coming out in terms of, this took down the site, now our customers are unhappy. So I think a big element is about trying to also keep any PIR for your post-incident reviews or your post-change reviews, whatever, as neutral as possible.
Yes.
You have to be open, you have to be transparent, you have to obviously be honest, but you can't start pointing fingers, because you're not going to create the culture that you need in order to be successful. Yeah,
you can't do that. You can't point fingers, even though it's like the most natural thing to do. And say, well, I wasn't part of that. It's not how it needs to work. Because I can guarantee you, the people that executed the script updates for the Atlassian Cloud and or CrowdStrike, I will guarantee you that will never happen to them again.
No.
And hopefully, because it's like you said, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and we need to be able to obviously accommodate that and learn from that, and then put that now into our process of not making sure that happens again, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting, though, just trying to think back to those horror stories we brought up. It's very interesting being sat as this neutral person, how quickly you can go from thinking that you have a very good a process or whatever that might be, to very quickly destroying your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of the ways to rebuild that reputation, to build that expectation that you can still look after your customers, is be open about what happened and be like, okay, in case of the Atlassian one, which we know quite well, being in the community, this was the maintenance script. We got the wrong IDs. That's what took down the sites and did what it needed to do. we used our backup services to restore everything that was gone, and that was how we managed to minimize the downtime for certain sites. But they posted that publicly, which re-trusted their customers that they did know what they were doing.
The worst thing you could do is just try to cover it up or try to minimize, your not involvement, but your part in what happened to that incident. Yeah. It's way better. It's almost like, hey, your parents like, always tell the truth, please. It's like, just tell me the truth. I don't care what it is. We'll get through it. Same thing.
It's easier to fix a truth than it is to fix a lie.
Yeah,
for sure. You touched on something earlier, which I just kind of want to circle back to, which is about automation. When you might have like an auto deployment kind of function, if you're talking about code and changes from that perspective. So where do you draw the line in terms of what gets automated and what doesn't, and how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. So again, it's almost like, we talk about AI all the time. AI is going to help alleviate a lot of the repetitive tasks. So I think automation and change management can also help alleviate some of the repetitive tasks. So in your change management, you may have the whole overall process. You may have some testing that needs to be done prior to, sending it to the cab for approval. You can automate this testing. A lot of times you can, spin up like a stress test or specific use case test, unit tests, any kind of testing. You can really automate within your whole process. So, your process is you develop the code, whether it's a fix, a bug, anything, you need to test it and say, okay, it works. Then we got to move it. So I think there's a lot of automation that can be factored into the testing, and then actually the automation of moving it to the next environment. So you're removing a lot of the human error that could kind of creep in from that process of moving it. So that's kind of where I start to get the automation bits and pieces coming in there. What about you?
I mean, I've been less on the kind of the development side. So a lot more of our automation that we were installing was kind of that preemptive stuff where, again, as we've touched on in previous episodes, is about self-service. So trying to take us out of the equation entirely and remove that human error. Again, it's about the human element, like the human error element. Oh my God, I'm getting tongue twisted.
Say that 5 times.
Yeah. God. Well, there's no way that 5 times is coming out correct, put it that way. But no, that it's all about human error.
Yep.
So can we in any way remove that factor? Like I said, a lot of mine have been more about operational changes. So, it could be looking at server images and can we replicate those as quick, or are we making something there? But definitely automation is always key to doing.
Yeah, and I think automation helps us kind of stay on that proactive part because we all see it, we all know it. We only hear about the chaos when something bad happens, and so it's like, how do we make sure we do that? Back in the day, it was called CQI, continuous quality improvement. So now, how can we do continuous change management improvement kind of thing?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, actually. Continuous change. Again, processes and in an ever-changing world, so should our processes, right? I mean, we need to be able to adapt in real time. So that's a really good shout out, actually.
Yeah, and it's almost like what we were talking about, having to audit, on a yearly basis our processes. Like we were talking about the self-service in the previous episode, that you want to audit your knowledge base information to make sure it's up to base. Well, why not audit your change management process quarterly, yearly, whatever it is, to make sure that you have the right pieces in place, you are proactive, and you're minimizing any sort of potential risk.
So, yeah, I mean, for sure. We have seen, so I recently retook my ITIL V4. I retook my ITIL. Yeah. The big change in V4 was about the agility and ability to change. Literally ability to change the change, right? Yep. So how can we, rather than being so fixated on the process and being a stickler for that, how do we readapt and remeasure it constantly? So I think we're seeing more and more kind of of those self-assessments, we're seeing more and more opportunity for teams. So the change team in this particular example, to have to say, okay, well, we're going to take a step back. We're going to, what is it? I never get this right. It's the the self-evaluation. Oh God, I don't know what that is.
We'll go with
my
that.
head. Yeah, we'll go with that. It's the wrong one, but it's fine. It's the self-evaluation anyway, by basically saying like, look, we have these changes. This is the number that went wrong. These are the ones that went well. Why did they go well versus what went wrong? You know, and you have to do that as a team and say, okay, well, did we miss something in our process? Is it because we thought that they were normal and actually they were standard, and someone, which is quite often the truth, but devs lie and push things through when they didn't need to, or was there something else? So, you know, you can, by doing those evaluations, and the big part of that is obviously using the post-change review to do that part for you as well. But that's definitely really, really important.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm laughing at myself of all the mistakes I made back in the day, you know, working with SQL, you know, the drop table command, don't use that. With reckless abandon, and not have backed up your database. So I'm just saying.
Take a dump. Yeah, take the SQL dump first, though. Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you very much, as always, for joining us again on Beyond the Flame. Today was all about changing that recipe for success. So I hope we all walked away with a new recipe in hand. But until the next time, thank you very much.